Hello, everybody! Happy Halloween! Or, I mean, it's close to becoming Halloween! But I'm Darren, and I'm a sketch artist, and I'm actually going to be teaching you how to draw in what we call the rough sketch style. And so all of you here today are going to be drawing just like the animators at the studios draw. Now, this style of art is mainly used in what they call their pre-production or their concept art. And so it's the ideas that get down on that sheet of paper for the very first time. And so the way that we're going to be building up our character today, we're going to be keeping our lines very light, really rough and sketchy. We'll go back in later and darken in the lines that we want to keep. Now, the character in particular that we're going to be drawing is actually a very special character, perfect for this season. He is the Pumpkin King himself, the Bone Daddy. We're going to be drawing Jack Skellington. Now, for our drawings of Jack, we're going to be focusing on just his portrait, so his head, his neck, and his very fancy bow tie. But if you want to add in his body as well, you're more than welcome to add that extra credit in. But to get us started with our portraits of Jack Skellington, we're going to go right towards the middle of our paper, a little about halfway up, and we're going to go ahead and start with a circle first. Now, the best piece of advice I like to give everyone when it comes to drawing any round shapes is that you really want to use the whole rotation of your arm to build up this shape here, because your shoulder has a ball and socket joint to it. And so by using your whole arm, it'll really give you that nice fluid circular motion needed to build up the circle. Once you've gotten a couple of slight circles in place, the next steps we're going to be adding in are what we call guidelines. And guidelines are just lines that help us place in the features of our characters. And so we don't want these lines to stand out at the end of our drawing. Now for Jack, he's going to have his head turned away from us just a little bit. And so the way that we show that with a guideline, we're going to go right up towards the top of our circle. And very lightly, I'm going to stretch down this C-shaped kind of curve. And we're going to curve this towards the left side of our circle here. And so now we should have almost like a crescent moon kind of right in the middle there. And the next guideline we're going to be adding in is what we call an eye line. Just a guideline to help us figure out where Jack's eyes are going to be placed. Now for Jack's eyes, we're going to go about halfway down our circle here on either side. And we'll lightly stretch across a U-shaped curve this time. As now we just turn that circle into more of a beach ball. Or if you're a big fan of video games, the Xbox symbol here too. This will give us our basic foundation for Jack Skellington, and of course, it looks nothing like him. But now that we have this foundation in place, before we even give Jack some of his facial features, we do want to give this skeleton his neck next. And so the way that we build up his neck, we're going to go right towards the bottom of our circle, and very lightly, I'm going to stretch down a diagonal line. And because he is a skeleton, you know, this neck is really long and thin. So I'm going to move just a little ways toward the right-hand side and pull down another diagonal line. And from the bottom of the neck, this is where we're going to be giving Jack his bow tie next. Now, Jack has that very fancy bat bow tie. So to get us started with that, we're going to add in the bat's head next. So to add in that bat's head, we'll go from the bottom of the neck here, and we'll build up the top of the head with a little rainbow. And for the shape of this bat head, it's going to be a little rounded triangle. You can also think of this as a guitar pick, because you know Jack rocks. Or if you're hungry, a Dorito chip as well. And so the way that we add that in, we'll go from the ends of that rainbow, and I'll pull down a little curve here on the left side and bring this to a point at the bottom. I'll add in that same curve over here on the right-hand side. And so that's really giving us that guitar pick kind of shape. Now to give this bat some ears, we're going to go right up towards the top of the bat head. And we're going to pull out these two stretched out triangles for the ears. And you can make the ears to this bat as long and pointy as you like. The longer and pointier you make these bat ears, the more spookier Jack's going to be looking in your drawings too. Now we do want to give this bat some eyes as well. And so for the shape of the bat eyes, you want to think of these as a couple of small pumpkin seeds. Pretty fitting for this guy, right? And so to add in those eyes, I'll go right on the inside of the bat head. And I'll add in these two backwards parentheses, the backwards letter C's. And to really give ourselves that pumpkin seed kind of shape, we'll add in those same curves going the opposite way this time. And if you want to make this bat head stand out a little more as well, you're also more than welcome to shade this in for him too. Now with the center of this bow tie in place, we do need to give this bat its wings next. And so the way that we add in these wings here, we're going to start from the edge of the bat head and lightly pull out 3 curves to get us started. So on the right hand side, I'll start with the first curve. I'll make this one a little short, still keeping this nice and light here. And I'll move towards the middle of the bat head. I'll stretch out another curve. We'll make this one a little longer. And finally, I'll go from the bottom of the bat head. We'll pull out another curve. And I'll make this one short again. Trying to make this about the same length as the one on the top. But because Jack is facing us in what we call a 3/4 turn, the left side of his bow tie is going to be a little shorter. So over here along the left-hand side, we're going to pull out those same 3 curves, but we'll make them a little shorter on this side now. Now, when Tim Burton was coming up with the idea for The Nightmare Before Christmas, he was actually working on the film The Black Cauldron at the time. And one day, Tim actually went into a department store, and it was at that time where Halloween had just ended. So they were taking down the Halloween decorations and were putting up the Christmas decorations because, you know, Thanksgiving never gets any love. And when he saw this, he wondered what would happen if these 2 holidays had actually collided. But if we leave these curves like this, it's giving us more of cat whiskers or even spider legs. But to really give it that more webbed wings of the bats, we're going to play a little game of connect the dots next. So starting on the right-hand side, just right between these 2 points, I'm going to stretch in this C-shaped curve right between the 2. Or you can also imagine this as a sideways candy cane as well. Now, the Nightmare Before Christmas actually started off as a poem written by Tim Burton. And in this poem, there were only 3 main characters. And those characters happened to be Jack, Zero, and Santa Claus. Sally, Oogie Boogie, Lock, Shock, Barrel, the mayor, all the townsfolk were additions that were later added into the animated film. Pretty crazy, considering there were over 200 characters in the film. And once you've gotten these wings in place, we'll also go back and darken these in. And if you want to add in some shading on the inside of the wings, you're more than welcome to shade them in just like that. Or if you want to give it more of that classic pinstripe look, just like in the film, what you want to do is go right inside of the wings and add in just a couple of curves here on the inside. Now, when the artist first started production on The Nightmare Before Christmas, they actually gave Jack a solid black tuxedo, because, you know, that's how he appeared in the original poem. But as they were starting their filming, they realized that with Jack having this black tuxedo, he was blending too much into the dark backgrounds of Halloween Town. And so on the cameras, he looked more just like a floating head. And so the way that the animators actually fixed that problem pretty quickly as well is they went back in and painted the puppets with these white stripes so he'd really stand out from all the dark backgrounds in the film. But with that bow tie in place, the hardest parts of our drawings are complete, and you all are actually about halfway done with your portraits of Jack And so with all of this in mind, we can go ahead and really start working on the most important step of all for Jack, or for any character. It's going to be his eyes, because this is where the audience really connects to a character and knows what they're feeling emotionally. We always look right into their eyes. Now, of course, though, Jack is dead. So he doesn't have pupils for eyes. They're just eye sockets that fit inside of his skull here. And so the way that we add in those eye sockets, we're going to go right above our U-shaped guideline. And for the eye on the right hand, or the eye socket on the right hand side, this one is going to be a circle. And so I'll go back. Using that whole technique of using my arm to build up the shape, I'll lightly build up that circle here. And with him being in this 3/4 turn though, his left eye is going to be a little smaller. This eye socket is going to be more of an oval. So on the left side of that guideline, I'll lightly sketch in this oval here on the left. And once you've gotten these light shapes in place for the eye sockets, we can go back and darken in the outer part of the eyes here. And since they are hollow on the inside, we're actually going to shade those in entirely dark for Jack. Now, when Disney first released The Nightmare Before Christmas, they actually released it under Touchstone Films. They were a little worried that the film wasn't going to do too well because this movie was very much far from their brand. You know, Jack isn't a Disney princess. When he sings, woodland creatures don't flutter out to him. And they felt like Jack was a little too scary and wouldn't really be able to connect to the audience that greatly. And so at one point during the production, they actually asked Tim Burton if he would give Jack and his ghost dog Zero pupils for eyes, kind of like how we see in the skeletons in Pixar's Coco today. But Tim felt really strong about staying true to the look of his characters, and so he told Disney no. And when he told Disney no, that's when they decided to release it under Touchstone, another film studio that they had acquired at the time, just so that it wasn't under the Disney name to be on the safe side. But they never realized that the film was going to be a huge success. You know, it made a lot of money in the movie theaters. It kept Hot Topic in business. And when this happened, Disney basically went back to Tim Burton and they told him, "Hey, Tim, you know, we loved The Nightmare Before Christmas. We had no doubts about your film at all. We'd be honored if Jack and his friends took over the Haunted Mansion every Christmas season." And so for over 15 years now, Jack and his friends take over the Haunted Mansion from September all the way to January. Now with those eye sockets in place, the next feature we do want to give Jack are going to be his nostrils, even though, you know, he doesn't use these nowadays. And so the way that we add in those nostrils, we'll go right between the eye sockets and I'll add in these two small curves. They're almost like little teardrop shapes. Now, the last feature we do want to give Jack here, it's going to be his big skeleton grin. Now, if Jack were alive today, his smile would literally go from ear to ear, or in this case, you know, eye socket to eye socket. And so the way that we add in his grin here, we'll go towards the bottom of our circle, and on the inside, I'll lightly stretch across this letter U. And if it helps you, you're more than welcome to follow that curve of the circle. And you can stretch up his smile as big as you like. But since he is really known for that big skeleton grin, I like to stretch up the letter U, just right above that eyeline there. And to even give it more of that Tim Burton kind of flair, Tim Burton does love little spirals in his artwork. And so I'll give him a little curly cue here at the end of his smile. Now, if you want to go for a friendly look for Jack, you're more than welcome to keep his smile just like this. But if you do want to add in his teeth, you want to go along this letter U and add in a couple of tip marks here and there. A lot of people do mistake these for stitches, just like his girlfriend Sally, but these are actually little indentations in his skull for where his teeth used to be. But that will pretty much give us all of Jack's facial features. So with all of that in place, we can go back to that original circle now. And this is where we can really darken this head in all the way around. Now, Jack Skellington also happens to make an appearance in 2 other stop-motion features. In the first film he makes a cameo in is the film James and the Giant Peach. In this scene where Mr. Centipede is going down into the ocean to retrieve the compass, if you look really closely at the pirate captain holding the compass, it's really Jack Skellington. And the other film that he makes a cameo in is Coraline, surprisingly. In the scene where the other mother is making breakfast for Coraline, if you look really closely at one of the eggs that she cracks into the bowl, the yolk comes out in the shape of Jack Skellington's skull. Which is pretty awesome, but the reason why he makes those cameos in those films is because The Nightmare Before Christmas wasn't actually directed by Tim Burton. It was animated by his friend Henry Selick, who also directed James and the Giant Peach and Coraline as well. But with that head shape nice and dark, that's also going to be the last step you need for Jack. So this is the time in your drawing when you want to go back in and do what we call that touch-up work, a little bit more cleanup work. So this is where you want to go back and darken in any of those lines that might have faded away in the drawing process that you'd like to stand out nice and dark. I just added in a little bit of extra credit, gave him a little drop shadow there. But with all those marks in place, the last mark you really want to leave on your drawings as artists are your signatures. So make sure you do find a spot somewhere on Jack and go ahead and sign big and proud, because you have just learned how to draw your very own portrait of Jack Skellington, the Pumpkin King. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in to draw with me. Hope you all are staying safe, staying home. Until the next one, have a happy Halloween!